Hey, look, it's Scott Eggleston,
Scott's
Director
back.
Scott
I'm
Eggleston.
back.
Yes,
We're gonna talk about
the
his
most famous director in Anchorage. Yes, right here.
well, and
How about
hopefully the world soon.
Oh.
yes.
He's
World
got a new
domination.
movie. He's got a new movie he's working on. We'll talk about that a little later. But Scott called us or texted me or whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, have you guys seen this random weird movie called Red Rooms? And I'm like, no. And so, of course, Scott is. I think you're like 4 for 4 on good movie recommendations.
Well, you guys
for our
hated
show.
Disappear Completely. I think that was the one you really didn't like.
Oh, that did I really?
It disappeared completely.
The one.
Yeah.
I've kind of blotted it from my memory. You
Yeah,
have to
so
remind
that's
me about
probably all
that.
we need to know if
Yeah.
it's blotted from our memory.
Yeah,
But-
what's that even about? I forget.
Well, somebody's disappearing completely, apparently.
Oh, it's the photographer
It's
guy.
a curse movie.
Yeah, the photographer guy. Yeah.
But we're talking about
Oh.
Red Rooms today.
Yeah.
Let's jump right in. I love to go to Gene first, and I'm going to do it again here. Gene, where
That's
are you
our
at
usual
with
MO.
Red Rooms?
You come to
Yeah.
me first. Yeah, so I was looking forward to this. I thought it'd be like sometimes, you get another person's perspective on horror, and sometimes it's just like, whoa, where'd that come from? And that's a hidden gem, So I was really looking forward to this movie, watching it, and just being scared and just being kind of messed up because good horror kind of messes you up. I remember I watched this one A24 horror movie. And after it, I had to like go to my bedroom and turn off, all the lights and just lay there for a little bit, real quietly, and kind of let my humanity come back to me. And it's like no joke, I had to do that.
Oh.
And so I was kind of expecting this, but no, it didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
So I appreciate the effort. Thanks for showing us. But I was wondering, is this really horror?
That's a good question.
And so because I think horror is two elements. One is some deformation of the human form. It has to make you uncomfortable, and so on those two elements, I don't know if it really hits. It's I would call it like maybe a thriller, psychological thriller for sure. But is it getting to the horror element? I'm not so sure.
Well, I did express that when I recommended it, that this
You
does
did.
lean more towards psychological.
Yeah, and it definitely
horror,
is. Definitely is that. I'd fall more into that for sure. I mean, is the movie entertaining? Is it a good watch for sure? Like, would my kids like it? I don't know. Would my wife like it? Watching it might be. It falls more into the true crime, although it's fictional, but it's still following like a fictionalized true crime. So, but yeah. So.
Scott,
I don't know. Is that a recommendation?
I don't know what exactly
Yeah.
you've done there,
Yeah.
but Scott, where are you at with this
Yeah.
one?
Well, I did suggest it. I saw this movie probably I had heard about this movie for a while. Like people had been kind of mentioning it on the Fringe because for French Canadian, I guess it didn't really have a distribution deal here, and
Quebec.
so my interest was piqued, and I watched it a few months ago, and I thought it was interesting enough to recommend for your show. And then I watched it again last night, and it's definitely a movie up my alley, I would say, and I thought it was really well done because it was, for me, it's like it's pretty weird, but not unapproachable weird. It's got some stuff in there I've never seen before. It's a really compelling main performance. And the story is pretty interesting because I'm not really a true crime aficionado.
No, I'm not either.
But
Yeah.
this movie kind of just uses that as a backdrop, I felt, for a lot of other elements. Like it's sort of a computer hacking detective story.
Yep,
It's a really interesting character study. It does have the true crime elements. I felt that, there was enough horror elements in it to recommend for your show. Like you talk about deformation of the human form, and the subject matter is quite heinous.
There was some
Quite
defamation
heinous.
going on.
Yeah, but I will say, I think this
it's all off screen though.
Right,
Yeah.
which is an interesting ploy by the filmmaker because clearly at the very beginning, I guess before we get into that, I should say I did like the movie. I thought it was really It was really well made. There was a lot of things to recommend about it. I watched it again and didn't feel like I was bored. And I noticed some more things I didn't see before, so I would definitely recommend it. But again, it is sort of a hybrid. I mean, it's not completely a hardcore horror movie. It's a lot of things, which I appreciated. So
I actually think this is a genius film. It's riveting in my opinion. Is it a horror film? I wouldn't go that far, but it is a disturbing film for sure because of the subject matter it's dealing with, which is basically 4 teen girls, 14, 16, and 17 or whatever, are abducted.
Well, three girls.
Three. Right. So I think that's what I said.
I thought you said four.
Oh, well,
Four
either way.
girls.
Well, and for all we know, there has been many more, right?
There could be. Yes. I'm sorry.
And basically this guy is filming their complete destruction, torture, mutilating their bodies.
Yeah, he is killing them.
And
yes.
he is broadcasting that live on the dark web, which is where the main character comes in because she can kind of figure this stuff out. And so it starts with this courtroom sequence, which I thought was one of the more riveting sequences I have seen in a long time, because it is telling you you're going to be seeing these terrible, terrible things that you never actually get to see. But
Right.
Yeah, but they never show us.
It's
which
really,
to me was a disappointment, because they wouldn't. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Yeah, it's
your
way.
We received a criticism. It's like that Gene guy interrupts too much. But I think this would have been a better movie if they had just shown some snippets, even of that, and then it brings in that true horror element.
I actually disagree. I think it
No.
would have lessened what was really happening there. This movie, to me, reminded me of a film from the 70s. This is the type of film I would have seen then. I'm going to throw out like Hardcore with George C. Scott. But where everything is implied, there's this tremendous buildup that you're going to be seeing this stuff, and it never pays off as far as visually. You see what the characters are seeing, what's going on with them emotionally as they're watching it. There's this interplay between the main character is, what's her name? Kellyanne.
Kellyanne.
And she is like a model by day, and she's like a computer kind of, she's really savvy with the computer. She's a poker player online and all this stuff. And she kind of, for reasons that you don't understand initially, she's going in to watch this court proceeding with this serial killer guy. And she kind of befriends this kind of homelessy type girl that has come down all the way from Montreal or wherever she came from to just see this. She's like infatuated with
Clementine.
This murderer. And
she likes him. He's
right.
innocent.
And so there's some really amazing interplay between them. And then when those two characters watch the footage of these girls being brutally murdered, I love the way the director did that. I'm not going to show the audience. I'm going to show the effect it has on those characters.
Yeah, that was excellent. It's interesting you bring that up, because I agree that whole opening sequence, the opening arguments between the prosecution and the defense is really riveting. And right, it sets you up like, and after watching that sequence, I was like, I don't know if I can make it to this movie, because I have 4 daughters, and if any of my kids were in that situation, I would be horrified. But I stuck it out because I did hear a lot of good things about this movie, and I was grateful they didn't stick your face in it. I realize that's not the hardcore fans, expectation. Well, but I will say
it is horror, right? So
and this whole movie, because of that first sequence, you're tense through the whole film because of that. And it kind of made me think about Alien a little bit, where after the chestburster scene, you're expecting something that graphic, that disgusting, that off-putting through the rest of the movie, and it never happens.
Right.
So it's very effective manipulation by the director. But I will also argue that the videos themselves are not the point of this story.
No, the point is, I take it as Kelly's journey through her life. She's trying to figure things out. I mean, she's got like Roger said, successful modeling career, but she's also super successful. Like at night, she is an accomplished, computer hacker, and she knows her way around, and she knows human characters such that she plays online poker, and she really is good at it, and she really thrives on like taking money from people, because she can sense who a person's character is even online. Even if you can't see them, she senses who they are, and she can manipulate them and take their money, and she gets a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Yeah, some of the dialogue's really telling too when she's describing this process. She says, you wait for them to get emotional, and then you bleed them dry.
Very
is
good.
what she says.
Right,
There's a very kind of vampiric kind of attitude that she has in her.
Yeah, but it kind of made me really feel sorry for her, because she's really good with computers, and excellent, actually, even the word exceptional with computers. And then she's a fantastic model. She knows her career modeling-wise. But her life is just empty. She's got nothing going on. She doesn't have a single friend to talk about, and then she befriends Clementine. And, the whole sequence is when they play squash.
Right.
You know, it's just like, what's going on here? You know, it's just she's trying, I think, really hard to make a connection with the person, and Clementine's a little resistant because she's just not on her level. You know, and so eventually that falls apart. And yeah, I think this is kind of a story of Kelly. It was Kelly kind of going through her life trying to figure things out, and yeah.
And what a fascinating character. Her character
her
is so
character's
interesting.
Really, it is.
And that performance, her name's Juliette something. I can't remember. It's French.
Right.
It's a French film, by the way.
French-Canadian, yeah.
Yes. But she is electric. I mean, you cannot take your eyes off her. And it's not just because she's an attractive woman. It's because her performance is so... She's such a question mark. You know, it's like her motivations in this movie are not explained.
They're not really. Yeah,
I can explain.
Oh, Roger, you got the answer.
I mean, I have my theories too, but you don't know her background much about her other than what you see up front on her.
What you see is what you get with this character, and so the thing that I love about this movie is she is stone-faced throughout the entire film, except for one moment in time. And the reason she's that way is
she's got her poker face.
She's already been exposed to those two videos.
Right.
So she's already seen the true depth of the human condition, right, by watching those videos. And because there's two videos that are available for her to see, she's got them through her dark web,
which are illegal, for her to have.
Right. I mean, it's a real person really being tortured and murdered. But the youngest girl's videotape or broadcast tape has not been found in the 13-year-old. So when we are first introduced to this character, and she is stone-faced and emotionless the entire movie, basically, except for one sequence, she's already seen the film. So that's why
the two older girls.
That's why she's like that. And later, she does have the ability to access the youngest one's snuff film, which is the only moment of joy that she has.
When she wins the auction.
Yeah, she wins the auction.
In a fantastic sequence when she's gambling and trying to raise enough money. I mean, there's a lot of cinematic wonderfulness in this movie.
Yeah.
Does a lot of good things.
Yeah, it shows her way of knowing how to play poker and how to judge people, even though it's amazing that she can't see them. They're not there, but she knows when they're weak, and she takes advantage of it, and she wins a ton of Bitcoin. Yeah. So she finances her ability to access this video by getting a lot of Bitcoin.
Which, if you look it up, that cost of that video in Bitcoin was like $100,000. That's how much has she spent. All of her money, obviously, she blew all of her money.
Right.
But can I also say that it's really refreshing in a movie, too, to see that the filmmakers have clearly done their homework, right? I mean, we've seen so many movies about computers that are so phony.
Right.
And even if you're just a lay computer person, well, that's completely false, when they have, whether it's like animated displays or maps or lots of sound effects and things like that. This movie does a really good job, and I think the director and writer, Pascal Plant, I believe is his name, really did research and looked into this stuff.
Yeah, it was very authentic for sure. Yeah, and it's also an authentic in that Kelly creates her own friend, her computer friend.
Oh yeah,
and so I think she is a person who has to control everything, and so
which she destroys also.
She keeps it very tight. Yeah,
she puts her in the blender. Remember that?
Yeah.
Because the first time I saw this, by the end of the movie, I was like, because I originally saw this movie and I heard, it's about this one person's obsession with this crime, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the movie, for that to make sense, there were too many things that didn't make sense. For example, spoiler alert, we're talking a spoiler.
Right, it's
everything
welcome
here.
to Gene and
So we've
Roger
seen this movie.
Talk.
I know there's one person probably listening to this who's a friend of mine who's going to listen, but please see the movie first because I want to blow a major thing. Like when she goes into the parents' house.
It's an easy rental.
When she goes into the parents' house at the end, I mean, what did you think she was going to do?
Yeah, that is an amazing sequence, but I think because they set up her character, because the modeling agency, they keep complaining about she's too edgy, and then they have some sequences of her model shoots and stuff where she's really over the top modeling with the random clothes and stuff. And so when she goes in there and does that selfie on the girl's bed, I don't know what that really was trying to tell me, other than, have you become so damaged by this lifestyle that you were trying to be so edgy, and now you've gotten into the really edgy stuff that you should never expose yourself to, and it's really just crossed you over into this other realm? Because when she is watching the Clementine video, the one that she has to get in auction, I love the way, of course, you don't see what
You don't
she
see
is
any
seeing,
of the video,
but you
you
see
hear parts of it.
you see the red filter going over her and kind of dissolving away, which reminded me a lot of the end of Two Lane Blacktop, if you ever saw that, where the film just kind of stops and melts away. And that was kind of what was happening there, which to me was, this is the last vestiges of her humanity kind of going away from her. And I don't know what the end game is going to be ultimately for that character, but it's not going to be positive.
Yeah. I agree. Well, first of all, we should also talk about probably the most unforgettable sequence in the movie, which is when she goes into the courtroom and puts these contacts in.
She dresses
first of all,
as the
she's
youngest.
blonde.
She dresses as the youngest girl.
Yeah, right. She takes off her jacket and she's wearing like a schoolgirl's outfit. She puts in these contacts, blue contacts, and then fake braces, and then waits for the attention of the criminal to see her. That was an incredible sequence. And then the sound design along with that, because there's some kind of shriek that happens when he sees her.
Yeah.
And then he kind of waves at her and makes a frowny face or something. I mean, that was incredible. And then the end, she does the same thing. She goes into the parents' house because she's hacked their door lock, and then sits on the bed and takes a selfie. Now, when I saw that, I was also like, what is going on here? I don't understand. I was kind of expecting her to almost to murder the family, because I thought,
I didn't think that at all. Not
really
for a
didn't think that?
second.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Well, because originally I thought that, she's obsessed with this crime and obsessed with this criminal. But by the end, the second time I realized that's not true. She's obsessed with the youngest victim. And that is why. Because if you notice, when she's doing the images she sees on her computer, the thing that she's looking at the most is that youngest girl. And then in the courtroom scene, she dresses as the youngest girl. And then by the end, she's taking the selfie as the youngest girl. Now, I don't know why she has that obsession, but to me, that makes more sense.
I have an idea.
That she's obsessed with the victim and not the crime itself. So
yeah, I think Kelly, to me, she seems like somebody who's like really empty, and she's just trying to fill her emptiness with something. And so she's going to this trial, and she has this ability we've talked about with poker, and she wins at poker regularly. And then I think she realizes that she can get that guy through the younger girl. And so she wins $100,000 Bitcoin, gains access to the third video, and also she has to contact some really nefarious characters, and so she knows that by dressing as the girl, going to outlandish means, she can get that guy. And so she does it, and she wins. And I think she goes through all those steps because she knows, she has read him, and she has determined his character, and she knows that she can manipulate him, even though they've never spoken, they've never even had eye contact. She knows that she can get him, and she does. She releases the video, and then the guy ends up confessing to the crime. And it seemed like, to me, watching the movie, like the prosecutor and defense attorney's opening statements, it seemed like the prosecuting case was rather weak. Like, there's no DNA evidence. They didn't talk about that. They just talk about that, the mannerisms, how the perpetrator moved in the videos matched his eyes. It's like, it didn't seem really strong. So in my sense was that if it had gone to a verdict, he would have probably been acquitted. But she brings the video of the third girl, the youngest one, and he confesses.
Well, and I do want to point out, I loved a really subtle move that the director threw in there, because the only piece of the videos you ever actually see is this one close-up of the killer's eyes. And did you catch the part that when Kellyanne is in the courtroom, there were two shots where she is looking at, I believe it was one of the jurors, and they show his eyes, and his eyes are very similar to what you saw on the video. I think it was
a member of the prosecution.
Okay, yeah. So there was a really nice subtleness there about those two sequences where, this guy's eyes look exactly like the guy's eyes on the video. So, he's probably going to get acquitted, because these could be anybody's eyes.
It could be anybody's, It just seemed like a weak case.
And that was a visual motif of the story, too, was that you saw a lot of close-ups of eyes. And that was one of the... Which is something else I like to bring up as far as from a filmmaker's perspective.
Got it out.
A lot of the visual motifs in this film were quite fascinating. Like, for example... The movie's called Red Rooms, and we learn that a red room is like this murder studio, right, which is covered in blood, so that's why it's red. I believe it's also kind of a reference to Amityville Horror, maybe. Wasn't there a red room in there?
Yeah, of course.
But if you notice, like the criminal is in this glass cube, right? And I imagine it's bulletproof glass to keep him from being killed. And then she lives in a glass cube also, in this really tiny apartment with a bunch of windows.
It's good.
Which she, for some reason, never seems to know how to turn the lights on. The only light in that place is from her computer screen. And a little bit later when she's talking to Clementine when they're having that long discussion, when they're eating on the floor.
Yeah, she got pizza. Usually she eats very well, but for Clementine, they're eating pizza.
You mentioned her modeling career, and we only see her model 2 times. First time, she's all in white, like an angel. Second time, she's in black. She looks like the devil.
All in black.
I thought that was interesting.
And the strobe effect going on.
Yeah. And we do see that kind of weird, almost blurry sort of computer effect. We see that come up several times. And throughout the rest of the film, there's an analog version of that, which is just things being out of focus. There's a lot of shallow focus in this movie. In fact, when I saw a lot of that, I was thinking, man, this must be a focus puller's nightmare. Shoot a movie like this when this filmmaker's getting so close and, they just move a little bit and they're out of focus. But that's just another visual metaphor for what's going on. Not everything's clear in this movie. We don't understand a lot. A lot of things are kept in the dark.
Right. And as Roger said, the movie ends on a very ambiguous... See, I can't say now ambiguous.
It wraps up, but it's...
But you don't know what's really going to happen. What
happens
to her? What happens to Kelly? What's her next move? So... Yeah, we don't know.
Because and the director illustrates that again by what Scott was saying, how there's kind of that dissolving effect because the camera does pan around her room there and everything's kind of melting away and things like that. So it does end, but you don't really know. I kind of almost want to know what's going to happen.
Yes,
because
she's so interesting.
She's very interesting. Very.
Yeah. And with that stone face and all of that, you don't really get a lot of insight into what's going on in there until she's watching those videos, which she seems to derive great pleasure from.
Yeah. And I was, like I said, I was grateful they didn't stick your face in it. Much to Jean's disappointment, apparently. But again, that wasn't the point of the story. The point was her journey, and all these horrific elements were just sort of a backdrop, interestingly enough. And then her relationship with the younger Clementine, which I almost saw as kind of a mother-daughter or sisterly kind of thing. And maybe that was she was trying to fill the void in her life with that relationship.
I took that as she's just reaching out, and she's finally grasping on. Because I think this movie also is the theme of it's like think. We're built for human interaction, and Kelly has removed human interaction from her life, and so I think the whole thing with Clementine and the squash is just trying to.
But you remember also
recapture a little bit of that.
Why Clementine leaves is that she finally sees the videos that Kellyanne has had this whole time, and she's so shaken that she's like. Because she apparently has some sort of fascination with the killer, right?
She does.
And she thinks he's been wrongly accused and it's a trumped-up charge or it's a kangaroo court or whatever, a court of public opinion, as she calls into that one TV show. But then she finally sees the videos and basically says, I'm going home.
Yep. Well,
it's too much for her.
And then she even throws away the racket that Kellyanne gave her, which sort of terminates the connection.
Exactly. And
completely.
It was quite the expensive racket. I've never seen a squash racket look like that, actually. Yeah.
But I think Jean is kind of right about how she wanted to create a relationship there, maybe because she had those videotapes the whole time, and it wasn't until later in the film where, Clementine, I actually have these videos. Do you really want to see them? Because she knew if she saw those videos, she would probably go, oh, wait, this guy I thought was innocent is probably not so innocent.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if she really enjoys watching the videos. I think she's just reaching for something, and this case is the current thing of the moment for her to try to fill her life. I think she's just desperately trying to reach for something, and this case is just one of the things she's reaching out for.
Well, but I think she's pursuing a road of darkness, though, because that character was set up that way. The modeling agents talked about that, how she's so edgy. And now you're too edgy. You've crossed the edgy line, and so we just can't anymore. So she's seeking out this darkness, this edginess, and she just went a little further than you're supposed to.
Yeah, I can see that because she does things that are completely unnecessary. Like before each day in the courthouse, she sleeps outside in an alley in Montreal. She doesn't, and Clementine even mentions that. Why are you sleeping outside? You could just take an Uber and get to the courthouse early.
She's not poor.
She's not
She doesn't
poor.
have to- unlike
she
Clementine,
has money.
who is. Yeah.
Yeah, Clementine's got nothing. But yeah, she's affluent, and she's affluent by her own steam. You know, she's definitely smart, but she chooses some edgy things.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Scott, anything we missed to talk about with this movie?
I don't know. I think we covered quite a bit of it. Again, I will say I did appreciate like the technical computer stuff, because the first time I think I missed some of it too. Like she has access clearly to the dark web, but she goes looking for security breaches based on the email that she figures out about the mom, which I thought was pretty ingenious.
And she hacks into the mom's house doorbell. And she
now
gets in.
I will say, if I have any complaints, they were a couple scenes that stretched reality a little bit, which was number one, when she goes into the courtroom wearing the jacket, like she would have had to take the jacket off.
Right.
They would have not just wanded her. They would have take it off, which would, of course, spoil the awesome moment that was after it. And then the fact at the end where she's outside the parents' house and the lights go off, and she goes in like 1 minute later and nobody's awake.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, that's
I would think they would be especially paranoid concerning this court case they were involved in. They would not just go right to sleep, but that's what happens.
Yeah, it's. I've never just turned the lights off and am immediately in a deep sleep.
I mean, at least give us a dissolve to show the
Right.
passage of time, maybe not a cut, but. Those are really.
She doesn't come in right away, so maybe we're just.
It's really
supposed
small
to
quibbles.
assume.
This is an excellent movie. I mean, I would highly recommend it.
It's watchable. It's a good watch.
I mean,
but
if you
again,
don't classify it, okay, let's classify it as psychological thriller or psychological horror. I think
yeah.
maybe go in expecting that, not Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though they set you up for something incredibly horrific. And again, if you're a parent, you might like say, I don't know if I want to watch this. And I've had to tell people this is a really good movie, but just be aware they're not going to stick your face in the grisly, horrible idea of 3 young girls being, just dismembered, tortured. And the sound design here, obviously, like any horror movie, really critical, really effective. Just excellent all around. I'm really interested to see this director's other movies after seeing this.
Agreed.
Even if they're not horror movies, he clearly has an interesting.
Well, I don't agree
take.
with that. They got to be horror.
Well, to be on your show, but I mean,
Yeah.
clearly he has a very interesting viewpoint.
Yes.
And it'd be interesting to see what else he's made. So.
Yeah, I would qualify this movie as, yes, definitely a psychological thriller, but disturbing subject matter. So just like Scott said, if you have any issues with that type of subject matter, you probably shouldn't watch this movie. But it is expertly crafted. Took me right back to 70s eras when directors were in control of the movie and they just were like, here's the movie I made and
that's
take
what
it
they
or
do
leave
in
it.
Canada.
And so
Directors aren't in charge in
yeah,
Canada.
apparently. So it was really cool. But Scott, tell us about, if you can, tell us about your new horror movie. I hear it's a total bloodbath.
You're right, because that's my films usually are. Yeah, which is one reason I probably like this movie. My recent movie I've been working on is called Theater of Pain, and deals with a woman.
I love that title.
Yeah, it's a good title. I like good titles.
That's a great title.
Where this woman tries to kind of redefine her life by joining kind of this play in a strange theater. I've been working on it. I shot it last.
So you got some Mulholland Drive things going on.
I hadn't seen Mulholland Drive until after I made this movie, and then I saw it. I'm like, oh, great. There's a lot of similar themes here. And passing of David Lynch also, that's worth mentioning. It's weird how as a filmmaker you watch a lot of movies, and by the time you make your own movies, you don't even realize you've been influenced by certain filmmakers. I never set out to make a David Lynch movie, and then people said, my last movie, one person called it Pet Cemetery by way of David Lynch.
Okay.
That was what they said. So I thought, okay, but at any rate, I am editing currently. I hope to have it done by this summer. Life always gets in the way of artistic pursuits, so it's taken longer than I've wanted. But it is coming along, and it does definitely fall in the lines of psychological thriller more so than horror. I think Bad Bones was definitely leaned more into the horror, and this leans more into the psychological elements. But no, not a lot of blood. Sorry.
Okay, you can always add that in post.
Right. And everybody loves CGI blood, right? So why not?
Looking forward, Scott, to your new movie when it comes out.
Theater of Pain.
Yeah, we certainly
That's a
enjoyed
great title.
Bad
Love
Bones
that
quite
title.
a bit, and so
Like Bad
looking
Bones,
forward to that.
Thank you.
Gene, anything final to say?
I think of us three, I have the more tepid response. For sure. I think Roger, you love, and you're kind of.
You said genius.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is a genius film.
Yeah. I would not
the
go-
construction of
yeah,
it
no,
is just beautiful. The way he immediately reels you in. That's a key element of a good film. And this reeling in is all done by dialogue in a courtroom, which is just beautiful.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't use those adjectives, but yeah.
The only negative, and I have to bring it up, is the dang thing's an hour and 58 minutes long.
I knew you'd say that up. Yeah.
It didn't seem long to me, but
Oh my
interesting.
goodness. So just be aware that it is a long one.
I know you guys were complaining about that with the substance also. You said that it was a stretch.
Yeah.
He was complaining, and I wasn't complaining about
Okay.
the length.
Well, it's just
And
once
I'd
we
like
understand how
substance.
it works, I don't need to keep going back to it, and they could have cut
Gets kinda repetitive.
15 minutes out of that one. But anyway, we're way off topic now.
Okay.
Scott, it is always a pleasure to have you
thanks
on.
for having me. It's
Welcome
always good to have-
anytime. One of these days, we'll get him on for some cheap 80s slasher movie.
Yeah, but yeah.
But
My
You
movie
guys have
probably-
done them all, I think.
not even close.
Says the
Scott.
window's
Oh my
closed,
gosh,
Roger.
not even close. But we will catch you next week with something. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.
But